Hello?
I can hear you. You hear me?
There we go.
All
Yep.
right. Cool.
I think I was gradually losing internet.
Oh.
If that makes any sense. I don't know how, but
No,
I
I
know.
get the logic.
What?
I get the logic behind what you're saying.
Oh. I lost you again. Okay. Let's get a gallery view and pictures ready. Okay. Next week we got the Green Knight, Jungle Cruise, and Stillwater. 91, Hot Shots, Doc Hollywood, Body Parts, Rover, Dangerfield, Return to the Blue Lagoon. Any classic ideas?
Murderer's Row of 91 movies there. Well, we've already done African Queen, so that would be the most perfect relation, but we've already done that. I can't think of any Nick Cage boat movies other than USS Indianapolis, but that was like just a couple of years ago.
Any sword and sandal movies?
None that I want to watch.
Yep.
I'll think of something.
All right. I can barely hear myself. It's driving me nuts. All right. So are you ready?
Yeah.
Here comes the music. You won't hear it. Hell of a hit record. Let's do that again. Welcome to the Everyone's a Critic movie review podcast. I'm your co-host Bob Zerl. With me, as always, is professional film critic Sean Patrick. Visit us at ihatecritics.net, everyone's a critic podcast.com. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Our handle is CriticsPod. Listen to us at Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Alexa, all your podcatchers. If you rate and review the show, give us a 5-star review. We will read it on the air. And if you do that, if you head over to our social media pages, you'll get information on giveaway that we're doing. Sean, you want to tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, I forgot to get that up last week, actually, but I'll get it taken care of this week. We got 2 new movies that we're giving away.
Excellent. Patreon.com/criticspod is the best way to help support the podcast. And if you want some of our podcast merch, head over to ihatecritics.net and click on our TeePublic link in the upper right-hand corner, or just go to TeePublic and search Critics Pod or Everyone's Critic Podcast or Willem Dafoe. All right. Let's share the screen for our YouTube people. Oh, yeah, we are live on YouTube whenever we decide to record. I put a link out to Facebook and Twitter when we go live. So if you want to listen to us live, click on the little bell to get notified when we go live, or check our social media. You can also watch the podcast on YouTube anytime you'd like, either the video version or the audio. They're both there. So anyway, let's just jump right into it. G.I. Joe is back. Spin-off Snake Eyes. Is it any good?
Oh, it's the best movie of the week. Are you kidding me? No, it's not. It's terrible. It's unwatchable. Snake Eyes stars Henry Golding as the titular character Snake Eyes, who doesn't have a name. He's just called Snake Eyes. Everybody calls him Snake. You would have thought that maybe this was a code name. It's not. It's his name. Anyway, Snake Eyes as a kid, he watched his dad get killed. He felt guilty for not being able to stop his dad from being killed. He grows up to punish himself for that by being an MMA fighter who gets his ass kicked regularly because he needs to take the pain. He deserves the pain. And then, but then he comes back and wins because he's the hero. He gets recruited by a guy named Kenta, who's a front for the Yakuza and moving guns for Cobra. And Snake Eyes goes to work for him, but when he asks Snake Eyes to kill a guy, Snake Eyes refuse. And we come to find out that this guy is the head of a secret ninja organization who takes Snake Eyes under his wing and takes him to Japan and teaches him to be a ninja by going through the 3 trials. And this movie is just so bad in so many ways. Where do you begin? Robert Schwenke is a terrible director. He doesn't know how to direct an action movie. Why he keeps getting assignments to direct action movies baffles me, because he hasn't made it. I mean, Red was okay, but it's mostly based off of how good Bruce Willis was the last time he cared about anything. I mean, beyond that, the sequel sucked. He didn't direct the sequel. But that's the one good thing Robert Schwenke's ever done. Ever since then, like literally, he like they gave him the Divergent series, and it was so bad that now, but I'm not even sure they released the last one. Is how bad that was in terms of its box office performance, just as bad as a movie. He's just a terrible director. And here you have a movie that's purportedly about ninjas, about guys who, fight for they're the highlight of what they do is fighting. So the fight scenes should be amazing, and they're not. They're impossible to watch. You can't tell what's happening. He's trying to do this kinetic camera work thing where he puts the camera in the action, but all it does is move the camera so much that you can't see the insanely cool things that these people are supposed to be doing. So you really don't know that it's actually insanely cool or not. Whether he had to do this to hide some deficiency in the way Henry Golding fights, I don't know, because I don't know if Henry Golding can fight now. It's too all the editing and the moving of the camera, you can't see anything. But my biggest problem, like of all the problems, like there's so many problems with this movie. It's so bad, but like there's this device that's chucked into the middle of the movie that the ninjas are protecting this all-encompassing weapon of doom that's like this heart-shaped rock that glows, and if you point it at your enemy, he'll just burst into ash. And once the bad guy gets his hands on it, he's like, well, movie over. All he has to do is point it at people, movie's over. But he doesn't. So the movie doesn't even bother. The movie is so lazy and so poorly made. They don't even come up for a good reason why he doesn't just point the rock at Snake Eyes and end the movie. Like he has to decide, you know what, minions, you go ahead. I'm just going to hang back here with my rock of doom and not do anything. Like, it's so freaking lazy. It's the laziest goddamn thing. I mean, and it's so easy to fix. I mean, you could just put in a thing where anytime you use the rock, it takes a little bit of your life force. Or one line of dialogue, I just fixed the movie. Like one line, at least I fixed that part of the movie because the other parts are still shitty. But or like the rock has to recharge after you use it to blow something up or blow up your enemy. Okay, just one line of dialogue can explain that, and you don't have this giant hole in the middle of your movie, but where people are going, why didn't he just use the stupid rock and blow everybody up? So bad.
That's a shame. It seemed like they were treating this like the Transformers series treated Bumblebee. Like this was going to be the one that saves the franchise. You can start over here.
Yeah.
And clearly that's not what happened, unfortunately. Well, I don't remember G.I. Joe. I mean, obviously I was a kid, but I didn't really watch it. Snake Eye is a bad guy or a good guy?
He started off bad and became a good guy.
Oh.
Yeah, I think that's the story they tell here, and I think that was kind of the story of the cartoon. My memory of G.I. Joe is weird because I watched the cartoon a little bit, but when I had G.I. Joe figures, like I had hundreds of G.I. Joe figures, but instead of using them to fight wars, I had them wrestle because they were better than the wrestling action figures that I had.
So I was a He-Man guy through and through, and well, that came out this weekend too. So I was more interested in showing my son that than this.
Was it good?
I didn't watch it. I said I was more interested. I haven't done it yet. I've heard people complaining because apparently I watched like 5 seconds of it and it looked like the old He-Man. So I'm kind of excited about it when I have time.
Right.
This is a pretty busy week for movies, so that'll part of why I didn't watch it. But I guess people are complaining that it kind of centers around Tila.
Yeah, apparently Kevin Smith decided to kill He-Man in the first episode.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, but I guess I remember the original cartoon, she was the only one who didn't, not the only one, but like the main character that didn't know. She was, so that's a major part of the story.
Yep.
And that drives people nuts. And they're probably yelling woke and blah, blah, blah. I don't really care. I'm
ruining my childhood. Oh my God, your childhood is the same as it ever was.
And if they go back and watch it, they'd probably be shocked at how much she played a major role in the series, just because it's called He-Man. But regardless, we're not here to talk about He-Man because nobody watched it. We're here to talk about old people.
Old, directed by M. Night Shyamalan and starring Vicky Krieps and Gal Garcia Bernal as a married couple who win a trip to this island paradise resort. They didn't even enter a contest, but they won it. And they decided to take him up on that and go to this place, and they're given all these amenities and it's beautiful. And then after their first day, they're approached by the owner of the resort, who offers them the chance to go to a private beach where there'll be a lot less people and it's really beautiful and really special. And so they take them up on that. Them and their two kids, a 6-year-old and an 11-year-old, go to this beach. There are several other people who are also, the most special people at the resort who've been given this access to this beach. And once they're there, they come across a dead body and they try to leave, and they end up being unable to leave. There's some sort of force that's holding them on the beach, and slowly but surely begins to emerge to them that they're aging at a pretty rapid rate. So first the kids begin to grow up very, very quickly, and then they realize, hey, we're getting older also. And I'm going to have to spoil it to talk about it. I hope that's all right is that all right with you? You've seen it.
Yeah, I mean, it's not, I guess before you get there, it's, I don't know, it's competent enough, but it's kind of boring. And in the end, it's just like, it's a movie. That's the best thing I can say about it.
Yeah.
The twist is it doesn't explain what's happening, and it just takes another direction. Mm-hmm. And quite frankly, they started with that from the get-go. Maybe it's a more interesting movie. There's more of a moral questioning going on, but instead he had to play it as a twist. And I don't even know if it makes it more interesting, but it's such a big deal that it would have played better if you knew the whole time. I don't know.
I don't know.
It's too interested in the twist, and it's nothing wrong. I don't have anything wrong with it other than it's, you pointed out something that I'm sure you'll get to, but it's just a movie. But from here on out, go ahead and spoil it.
All right. So you've been warned. So basically what he's done here, and I guess I thought this was obvious to everybody, but I'm reading a bunch of reviews today going, why doesn't anybody else see this? Because it seems very obvious to me. This is a movie about movies. It's not even about an old age beach. That's just the gimmick. That's the horror movie obvious gimmick. What Shyamalan is doing here is making a movie about movies. He's making a movie about the Hollywood industry and the way it chews up and spits people out once they're no longer useful, once they've aged out of usefulness. So this becomes clear once you see that Shyamalan himself is playing the person who is behind the camera at the top of the rocks off the beach. He's filming everything that's taking place on the beach, and it's being reported back to this supposed pharmaceutical company that has secretly given all of these people, there are several of these people who have maladies. They're deathly maladies. And they've come up with various ways of trying to cure those maladies. But to figure out if the cure works, they need to expedite the aging process. And they've found this beach that does that. And so to send essentially these people, one of them has cancer, and they're able to essentially, if they can cure her cancer, then she'll, instead of dying of cancer, she'll die of old age, and that'll tell them whether or not their drug worked. The same goes for this other woman who has seizures and another woman who has a calcium deficiency. They've given them drugs that they didn't know they were taking in order to, set that up. There's this shady pharmaceutical company that is, putting these people, essentially killing these people to test their drugs. And the overall metaphor is the pharmaceutical company is the movie industry. He's the mercenary director for hire who is directing something that he didn't create, that is not his own. And that's why he directs it with this very intentional artifice. So you have all of these characters, all these performances that are incredibly over the top, that are incredibly broad. Every moment somebody talks, somebody says something that takes you out of the moment and knocks you out of the movie. It breaks the fourth wall very intentionally by just how bad these line readings are, because these are good actors. These are trained actors. Some of them have been doing this for a while. Alex Wolff is one of the best actors working today, but he makes him emote in such a fashion in this movie that is completely over the top and unbelievable. And he does that with the purpose of exposing the artifice of this being a movie. Because again, this is not a movie about what it's about. He's used a gimmick. This is the premise is a marketing campaign. He is the mercenary director for hire. He is the pharmaceutical company is the Hollywood studio system, and the people on the beach are the people in Hollywood who get chewed up and spit out in this ever growing system of yes, we think we're making art, maybe, but we're using the idea that we're creating art in order to cover up the fact that we're really mercenaries just trying to make money. And so I thought that metaphor was pretty obvious. Apparently, I'm the only one that's reading that, but it's a full meta narrative that's taking place here. Because I don't think Shyamalan is a bad director. I think he's quite talented when he's trying, when he's invested in something, he's quite talented. So when he directs actors to act this poorly in a movie, I have to believe that he's doing it intentionally. I think he did it intentionally with The Happening, and it just didn't set.
I disagree.
I think he did. I
think Mark Wahlberg was making another movie, and Shyamalan wasn't smart enough to realize that. Mark Wahlberg was making the right movie, and he was not putting it in the movie properly.
This movie, I think he's doing this intentionally in this movie. I think he directs them particularly this way. He also uses his camera in a very showy way that reveals the sort of directorial flourish that he's using here. The way his camera moves, the things he chooses to film and not film. He's exposing the artifice of the movie, but he's doing this in a way that is incredibly obnoxious and just continuously underlining the point of how artificial this all is, and how he seems to hate directing this movie, which I find he's trying to be on our side. He's trying to tell us that, hey, I'm with you. I know that movies like this suck, and I know that I'm working for this mercenary corporation that's just trying to take your money, and we're using these people, and Hollywood uses these people all the time to just until they get old, and then they're not useful anymore. That's the story of many actors, is that they get used until they're old and they're not useful anymore. And our society has sped up the aging process via social media and criticism and so on and that's the metaphor that he latched onto here. And you can find that also in this character, which is one of the dumbest characters ever created. A character who is said to be a famous rapper, who is called in the movie Mid-Sized Sedan. That's his name. Now, whether that's a failed joke or it's intentional, it's debatable. Either he's walking into the room with this character going, "Hello, fellow young people. Like I understand your culture," or he's pointing out how artificial it is, and maybe this was in the script that he was given, and he's like, "That's really stupid. I'm going to highlight that." maybe I'm giving him too much credit, but I think honestly that's the movie he made.
Yeah, and going back to The Happening, I mean, maybe you're right. It just because he did when you did interviews, he kept calling it a B movie, but he did make a B movie. Mark Wahlberg made the B movie. He made such a like everything else looked professional and real, and same thing here. Uh, I don't know that his ego allows him to make a B movie, and I mean,
That's why I think there's such a heavy meta narrative, is that he's not capable of making a real B movie. Like, he doesn't have the boldness to give us, like, there are moments here of real, like this poster is far more bold than anything that's actually in the movie in terms of body horror.
right?
This
Oh
poster is
yeah,
way more bold than the actual movie, which is actually PG-13.
and there is room for a lot of body horror, and they
And
drop the ball on that big time.
absolutely. Absolutely, they do. There's one scene basically of real, genuine body horror. Um,
Well, they could have done something with that pregnancy. That would have been fucked up.
oh yeah, I was watching a YouTube critic talk about it, and she pointed out that that she wants to see Ari Aster's version of this. She wants to see Ari Aster's Sandcastles, which is the movie, the name of the book that this is based on, and which has a much more fucked up version of this story. They're already on the island. It's just much darker and different than this.
Well, I think part of the problem, if that metaphor is what he was doing, is, I mean, they were already washed up and chewed out when they got to the island to begin with. So even by the time they were old, that it was already kind of lost on that. They were young when they were disposable. I don't know. It was just sloppy and not sloppy in certain storytelling ways, especially if you're going for that metaphor. But then just too competent in other ways and too safe in another way. The best thing I can say about it is it's a movie. It's kind of boring. There's
I think he thinks he's this high-minded artist who's kind of above it all and commenting on everything, and and I think that he just doesn't have the actual talent to be that. He doesn't have, not the talent. I don't want to say he's definitely talented. I just think he thinks a little bit more of himself than he's able to deliver.
right, and he's not. I don't think he's flexible enough with his style to. I mean, he's almost made himself a one note director, unfortunately, and this this would require a little bit more variety out of him, and he doesn't have it here, and it ends up just at best being stale.
But he's also blaming the studio for all of his problems. I mean, that's what the studio is just about. Their corporations just trying to make money, and they're chewing us all up and spitting us all out. And I'm on your side, guys. Hollywood's terrible.
But he spends so little. I mean, that's part of why that needs to almost be part of the main story from the get-go, because in order to really develop that idea, before you know it, they're all arrested. So, I mean, it's too big of an idea to do it as a twist at the end and then just end the movie.
Yeah.
And even then, I don't know if it's good, but it's got to be better than what this ended up being. All right, we've talked about it enough. How it ends.
A much more better end of the world movie. Not that that's an end of the world movie, but it kind of is in a way
for certain people.
How it ends stars and was written and co-directed by Zoe Lister-Jones, who plays a character who can see her younger self. She has conversations with her. They live together. They interact, and generally speaking, people can't see this younger version of herself, but she can. The younger version of herself is played by Kaylee Spaney, and it's just this wonderful device that they don't explain, but they don't need to. It's because, again, it's not what's important about this. Why isn't important. How it plays out becomes important. This is the last day on Earth. There's a giant meteor coming, and everybody knows it's coming, and everybody's just kind of coming to terms with this being the last day of their life. And she's decided, for early on, she decides that she doesn't want to do anything. She just wants to get stoned and just kind of lay there and watch the world end. But her younger self wants her to go to a party that her friend is throwing, and she eventually does decide to go. But before that, she's got this kind of bucket list journey of people she wants to see before it all ends, including interactions with her mother, played by Helen Hunt, and her dad, played by Bradley Whitford. And there's these wonderfully weird, awkward, funny interactions that really don't go anywhere you expect them to, and they're just really smartly written and played. But what really got me and what really makes me love this movie is the ending, where these two characters who have never been in the movie before, she interacts with a bunch of different people, just along the way. Just Nick Kroll shows up, and Fred Armisen and Paul Scheer and Rob Hoivel. They all just kind of show up and they do a little comedy bit and they move on. But the last one she runs into is Charlie Day and an actress whose name I can't remember right now. And
waitress from a
she has she has a moment with them that turns out to be this really genuine moment that then spins her off into what remains of this story, which becomes very emotional. And I got really emotionally invested in a movie that initially seems so distant and so ironic and so far from being emotional, that when it takes this turn at the end to be very emotional about the way she's interacting with her younger self, I was blown away just how good that was. That was such a great scene. It's so beautifully played, and that it comes from that interaction is both funny and poignant and weird, and it makes me love this movie that much more.
Yeah, it's a neat movie. I think it was filmed during lockdown, so all the scenes are social distanced, more or less. And knowing that does kind of take me out of the movie a little bit. But other than that, it's neither here nor there. It's kind of neat, but at the same time, it's a gimmick. So you sit there and you can definitely see the gimmick. But it is a very sweet story, and because of all those interactions between the cast of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, along with Nick Kroll and Fred Armisen, Olivia Wilde has a great scene.
Yeah, that was a wonderful scene.
It's an easy watch. It's a lot of fun. And there's nothing wrong with what Pauly Shore and Whitney Cummings do.
Yeah.
My only thing that bugged me is Whitney Cummings was all over Instagram the entire pandemic, doing parties and Thanksgiving stuff, and it was just come on, man. People are supposed to be separating and social distancing and not hanging out, and here you are shoving it in her face.
Yeah,
I love her. She's hilarious. I think she's great, and then the whole Joe Rogan tie-in, it's just, I don't know, she's starting to kind of, I'm judging her more than I should. It's my fault. So that kind of, as funny as it was, that's me. It's my fault. So just ignore me. This is a sweet, good movie that I think people will enjoy. Anything else on how it ends?
I hope people see it. Give it a real chance.
Yeah, there's enough people in here that, whether it's Paul Scheer, you're gonna like somebody in it, and they have a great scene, whoever it is, because they were all. I mean, Bradley Whitford's never been better.
He's so good in that scene.
I mean, really all. I mean, Fred Armisen's great. The whole thing, every little side thing is really, really funny.
Helen Hunt. I mean, there's a very authentic interaction. It's very spiky, but it's very, mother-daughter. It really does work.
Yeah, and then the scene with her ex-boyfriend. I mean, probably the worst scene of all of them, but it's still really funny. I don't know. It's a good movie. It's very watchable, very fun. I mean, the posters is fresh and funny. That's the perfect way to describe this movie.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on. Broken Diamonds.
Broken Diamond stars Ben Platt as a wannabe writer who is about to give up everything in his life. He's quit his job. He's selling his car. He's giving up his apartment to move to Paris to become a writer. But then his father dies. And his father was the main caretaker for his sister, played by Lola Kirk, who is she's schizophrenic, I believe is what she is. And she's at a hospital. She lives at this hospital, and she takes medications to keep herself in check. and she's trying to get back. She's trying to get out into the world, but she's also got a lot of problems. So with his father dying, he's kind of thrust into this situation where he's pretty much given up most of his life to move to Paris, and now this situation is happening where he's pretty much got to take care of his sister. On top of that, she gets herself kicked out of the hospital over an incident that was pretty much related to unresolved grief from finding out that her father died. That's going to leave her without a place to stay for 2 weeks. Meanwhile, he's leaving in a week. So there's a lot of complications building up there. And this is a very good movie. It's very well acted. It's got some moving parts that are really, that can be very emotional. It doesn't quite stick in terms of being as emotional, like say, as I didn't have like the same emotional reaction that I had to how it ends. It's a very different movie, but I still connected to it, that one, on an emotional level more than I did with this movie. But there's still a lot of really strong elements to it, and they do well to set up the story and set up his conflict. But it's also a very easy conflict that has a relatively simple way of playing out. I'm not going to spoil it, but I don't think I can. It's not really something you could spoil. It's not a twist or anything like that. It's a solid, well acted movie that has a strong heart to it, and it's good.
Awesome. And there's Settlers.
Settlers. Yeah, Settlers stars the young girl from the Florida Project, and Sophia Botella from one of the Star Trek movies. They, along with Johnny Lee Miller, make up this family that is living on, we think it's Mars. They don't really tell us that it's Mars, but it appears to be like Mars. They've arrived in this place and they've taken over this farm, which is weird. There's a farm that's on this planet, which again we think is Mars. And it turns out this like fertile land, and they can grow stuff, and they're making a life. But they've found out that they've taken this land from somebody else, and those people, at least the descendants of those people, have come back and they want the land back. And one of them is going to get inside this, essentially this dome that they're in, and try to take back the land. And that's kind of the action element, but that's early on in the movie, because it's not an action movie, because nothing happens in this movie. It's just years and years and years of nothing happening in this movie. Again, this is another movie that's very meta. So we got a meta narrative, because this is a movie about lockdown. It's about a family that's locked together in a house that they can't leave. They can go outside and they can do the things outside that they need to do in terms of growing their own food and tending to their wildlife. But they're locked into this bubble that they're inside. And that's essentially the story here, is this girl growing up in essentially what is lockdown. The metaphor is incredibly obvious, and I hate when metaphors are so incredibly obvious. I'd like you to kind of build to that and surprise me. And there's no surprise here, because really just, I get it. Lockdown's the same every day. Nothing happens during lockdown. I get it. I understand what you're going for. I don't want to watch a movie about that. Nothing happens.
Glad I skipped it then.
Yeah.
All right. We'll see how long this lasts. Woodstock 99, Peace, Love, and Rage.
This is the first in a series called Music Box from HBO and producer Bill Simmons. Bill Simmons is the guy who essentially was part of ESPN creating 30 for 30, and this is now his kind of 30 for 30 for music. The first episode is on Woodstock 99, which was this gargantuan failure of planning. The 30-year anniversary of Woodstock, one of the original guys, Michael Lang, along with this guy John Shear, decided to put on Woodstock 99 5 years after they'd done the 25-year anniversary, which kind of went relatively well. It kind of was reminiscent of 69. It was kind of peaceful. But the problem is they point out they didn't make any money. And one of the things that they say very clearly this time is that this time we're going to make money. and to do that, they had to sell out in every way imaginable, to, selling water for $4, selling a slice of pizza for $10, like all this just these awful corporate tie-ins everywhere. And setting Woodstock add an Air Force base, which I realize optics weren't a big thing in 99 as they are now. Now we talk about optics. We talk about what something looks like when you do it. They didn't think about that back then. It's Woodstock. It's the Peace Festival. And you're putting it at a former Air Force base. On top of that, it's just the worst location. Like, it's large enough. Yes, it's large enough for what their scope was, but in terms of being like habitable, it's not something that you can spend a lot of time on when it's really, really hot. Really, really hot, and a lot of cement and a lot of people in the same place is a bad idea. And anybody who could plan something could probably tell you that this was a bad idea. Why they didn't recognize that it was a bad idea, nobody knows. On top of that, they made no plan whatsoever, apparently, for the bathrooms, because those, we're talking about a 3-day festival. They've got porta potties, but they're just not useful at all. They don't plan on people being people and just destroying this shit.
Well, nor were they emptying them quick enough. They didn't have any of that. They had no logistics plan for that. None
whatsoever. They cut corners in every possible way.
Specifically with security.
Oh, yeah.
Just hired fans, gave them the answers to a test. They got in, turned their shirts inside out, hid their lanyards, and went to the show.
Yeah. The only thing these people confiscated at the door, they didn't confiscate drugs. They confiscated water.
Food, yeah.
Which there was not nearly enough of course. So you have, a person literally dying at this festival because of the dehydration and heat. There's one guy who almost dies from hypothermia, tells his story in this movie.
The guy who does.
It's just, and then you really get to the heart of it, and it's just so awful. I thought the movie kind of cut a corner on this particular aspect, which is all of the sexual assaults that occurred at this festival, which were innumerable. There were so many of them that you can hardly count.
They're like showing it on camera half the time.
Yeah. And this motherfucker, John Scher, this absolute garbage person, has the audacity to say, well, they're walking around naked. I mean, it's their own fault. Screw you.
It's like, not to victim blame, but here I'm going to victim blame. He does say something that is true in it, and he's wrong when he says it. But Woodstock 69 was a disaster too. They made a movie, they re-edited it, made it look amazing. You could have done that here. In fact, the DVD I had when it came out looked like a great time. You can't tell me when Korn hits the stage and the way that crowd moves that you don't get chills how cool that is. They're still normal at that point. It hasn't gone off the rails yet. But the way the crowd interacts with the way the Korn goes up and down and the wave through the front to back, that's really, really neat and really, really cool. You could have edited this and make it look like a huge success because they never stopped it. It just kept going. I'm not saying that he's right and they should do that, but you could have done that and made it actually look good. 69 was a shit show too. Michael Lang's an idiot. He doesn't know how to throw shit. He's not a good promoter. Woodstock 50 fell apart because he didn't get permits and he didn't do his job right. He doesn't know how to, he's not a real promoter. And that's what the problem was. And this documentary pisses me off so much because they spend time trying to act like the acts on the show, not just what they did on stage, but what they stood for is why the kids are like that. They're bringing like assholes like Moby on, who's probably the biggest creep of every artist on that stage. Say what you want about Fred Durst. Moby has actual shit he's done wrong. That's, look up Natalie Portman and Moby and tell me he's not a creep. Then you got Scott Stapp from Creed, another guy who's got a lot of problems, who's another one of your voices trying to tell people apart or tear, this new metal, thing apart. New metal is not homophobic. It's not misogynist. It's just they were trying to work that angle, and it wasn't true. Kid Rock might be a little bit, but they spent very little time on Kid Rock. Then you go to the artists on stage, and they're not there. They're walking up on stage and they're walking off. There's no context there. Yeah, the show guy talking to Anthony Kiedis and Fred Durst. You don't know what they're saying. You don't know what's going on. I've seen almost all these bands live, a lot of them at least, and I've seen girls go up on a guy's shoulders and a guy grab the girl, and I've seen every single artist on the stage stop the show when that happens. And you show Offspring doing it here, and I'm sure it happened more. But you can't see when you're on a stage that big, as far away as the people are. You can't see stuff. You don't know everything that's going on. And so that to sit there and say, because Limp Bizkit has a song called Break Stuff, and they ended up breaking stuff 3 days later, 2 days later, that Limp Bizkit caused the whole thing to go. It's just lazy and stupid. And even when the Red Hot Chili Peppers playing Fire at the end, that was all planned ahead of time because they were going to do a Jimi Hendrix thing afterwards. I mean, it's all the way you put it together to sit and put blame. The blame should lie on two people, and that's the two promoters. This has been done. You know, whether there was 220,000 people here. I was at a show 2 years ago with 100 and some odd thousand people. When you have that many people, it doesn't matter if it's 100 or 200,000. It's a ton of people in a short space. These stages are a mile and a half apart. You have 3 female performers the entire weekend playing at 5:30 right before, I think one night it was before Limp Bizkit, another night it was before like Bush. I mean, you had all the hard rock acts at the end of the night, and you just, have a stage 4 Alanis Morissette and Jewel and Sheryl Crow. Mix it up more, do it. There's ways to do this and not be stupid. And it's not a big deal to have Limp Bizkit, Rage Against the Machine, Metallica play back to back. That's been done. This didn't have to happen. You have no security. They're literally sleeping in shit. It is so infuriating that, I mean, Michael Lang is one of the biggest idiots that ever lived in this world. And just the way, I wish they would go back and look at Woodstock 69. The army had to be brought in. I mean, more people died in that one. There were rapes in that one too. And all you hear about is how good Jimi Hendrix was. And, because that's the way that it was presented at the time. And that part really bugged me about this, because they didn't just blame them. They went and blamed a lot of different things. And then for whatever reason, they bring up a very quick Napster part of the story, which had other than greed. But, you ask any artist, with the exception of Dave Mustaine, who was kicked out of Metallica, what they think of Napster, and they're going to side with Metallica. But they get the guy kicked out of Metallica to shit on Metallica regarding Napster. It's just, to me, I thought it was really poorly done. And even the nudity and the sexual assaults is almost like they showed a lot of it, and to the point where I couldn't tell if they were trying to prove a point or, hey, we got naked girls in this movie. They could have censored stuff. They didn't have. I mean, it was just, I don't know. I did not like this movie. I understand. It pisses me off at the poor. Like, they didn't have a true intent. And like you said, they didn't. Like, the sexual assaults were bad. There were some things that I thought were really well done. In that, when DMX hits the stage, he's got this song where he's doing the callback, and in the callback, a crowd of 100,000 white people are yelling back my N-word. Yeah. But DMX he's doing it in a way that it's like he's giving them permission to do it. Well, what is weird is, and they have a journalist who goes, if you asked every single one of those people individually, they would never admit to doing something like that. And
like if you did a poll and you asked people, like, you're standing in front of somebody, you asked them if it was they would say, of course not. No, you never say that.
Absolutely. And here they all are yelling back at DMX because they think it's okay. And they get one of the rioters on there too at the end, a guy who never thought he'd get wrapped up in it. There's something about mob mentality. And that's why you have to take precautions with these big festivals, because things can go out awry. You need boundaries. You need to break up the stages. One, having stages a mile and a half apart
Yeah.
on top of asphalt on 100 degrees for 3 days.
Terrible idea.
Forget the shit everywhere.
Right.
No water, no reasonable water, without waiting for hours to even get a sip of something. People,
not accounting
showering
for
in the water source.
not even accounting for basic human nature. Not that human nature is necessarily always bad, but that there are going to be selfish people who are going to act selfishly, and you don't have anybody there to stop them from acting selfishly, like the girls who climb into the only water supply to take a bath. Like,
Right.
Just that not accounting for that. I mean, why were people allowed to just walk around naked? I mean, why was that something that everybody just arrived there and thought was okay? I not that I'm saying that it's bad to be naked. I'm not saying that. I'm not a prude, but I'm saying that in general, if I walk outside tomorrow naked, I'm going to get arrested. That's going to happen. I can't walk down my street just being naked. They're going to arrest me. And yet somehow these people had license to just arrive at Woodstock 99 and just be naked and have nobody do anything about it. Nobody, there's not a sign somewhere that just says no shirt, no shoes, no service. Come on. I mean, you're claiming this is Woodstock, yet you're holding it on an Air Force base. Like, you guys don't care about this. Even the creation, even the myth you created about Woodstock, you don't actually care about it.
Right. And that's the other thing. It's like the show, I'm going to a festival in September. Again, there'll be 120,000 people there. Korn's there, Metallica, all these bands that are on here, a lot of them are going to be there. Now, granted, they're older and it's been years, so it's a different crowd. And they'll be maybe not naked people, but partially naked people, and they're probably not going to get raped, because it's ran by a much better promoter who has the proper security and knows how to do stuff. And I just, it's like they were trying to blame people for not even just that one promoter about the nudity and the people walking around topless or naked. It was, they were trying to blame Girls Gone Wild. And don't get me wrong, like, that guy's an idiot who put that together, and that was part of the culture at the time. And everything is cyclical. They kept going, well, if Nirvana were here, it would be different. Fuck that. That's not true. Right now we're at our culture is very, it's woke and people are upset. There's going to be a band or something that comes out and it's going to change again for, to be more over the top and more party atmosphere. It's going to come back. It does that everything's cyclical. So it's not that Kurt Cobain died, so now Kid Rock came out and ruined everything. It's not how it was. And I don't know, even putting that in this documentary wasn't relevant, and it kind of annoyed me. And I don't know. That was where they took liberties with the editing to make things look worse than it was. And don't get me wrong, I don't like Kid Rock. I don't like Fred Durst, but to sit here and put all this, especially on Fred Durst, is bullshit and stupid.
No, the blame lies clearly with John Scher and Michael Lang. They're the villains of this. They did this. And granted, the people obviously who were rioting are at fault, but they created a situation that allowed them to be that way. They created a situation that was unsafe by just their poor planning.
You got to protect people from themselves, because like we were just saying with the DMX part, all those people would probably say what they were doing wasn't right beforehand, and they just got caught up in the moment and went with it. Same with the rioters. I don't know. It's really frustrating. And at the same time, it's important to know that you shouldn't treat women like people were treating them here. That there's no excuse for, all those people should. I know that was there 8 that were reported, but clearly you could see hundreds of them happening in this documentary alone.
Right.
Girls on someone's shoulders and you're touching her, you're sexually assaulting her.
It's true.
So
it's true. Because a woman is naked, you don't have the right to put your hands on her. Sorry, you just don't. You don't have consent to do that.
I mean,
they show
them girls who aren't naked, crowd surfing them, ripping her clothes off.
There's a story in here from a guy who is a first responder for multiple hurricanes, who said this was worse than the hurricanes he'd worked. But he tells this story about seeing an ambulance pull up at the tent, and ambulance driver gets out not wearing a shirt, and he's kind of confused, and he says, "Don't let anybody touch her. Just keep an eye on her. Don't let anybody." And inside is a girl. The reason the guy doesn't have a shirt on is because he had to give it to this 15-year-old girl they just ripped her clothes off. They'd torn her apart in the crowd, and she had to be rescued from the crowd and taken out and taken to the tent and treated. And good God, like, you fucking monsters. Like, I don't care what music you're listening to. It's not the music. It's you. It's you.
Yeah.
You're the monster.
Yeah.
And Michael Scher and John Scher and Michael Lang for setting up a situation where this became possible. This is on them. That blood is on your hands. Absolutely.
And I'm not saying all of us have it in us to do that, but all of us have somewhere we'd go that's not ourselves. You know, I would never go. I've definitely been in a scenario where I could have touched somebody and I never would. And I can't imagine being a rioter. That's just not but you know, when you're in a mob mentality, you're going to go outside your normal morals. Everybody's going to have a different limit, but you know, you just, I don't know, you can watch it. I guess it's something, and these guys come off like assholes, and I'm glad about that.
Right. I don't think we need to live in a police state where everything has to be like constant observation from police, but there is a balance that you can create where you just create an atmosphere that it happens, like you said, at dozens of shows every year that are sizable shows.
Corporate event. Coachella is corporate, and it works just fine every year.
They're able, but it's not because they've turned it into a police state where they have a policeman in every row of the thing. It's that they've created an atmosphere where people understand what's acceptable and what's not. On top of which, you've got this absolute disgusting, horrible greed that is driving every decision that John Scher and Michael Lang are making. You know, because this time we're going to make money. You know, Woodstock '94 was successful, but we lost money. So this time, we're going to make money this time. They said that.
Yep. And they cut every corner to make that money. They did not spare any expense, or they spared every expense, I guess is the right phrase, because they didn't have security or anything. They had no boundary. It was just a shit show, literally. And it's, again, you can watch this. I'm not gonna be mad at you if you do, because they do need to be vilified. I'd love to see them tear apart 69 and really show it for what that was, just to really show you what kind of a piece of trash Michael Lang really is. But if you want to watch something great, watch the Paul McCartney, Rick Rubin series on Hulu. That's freaking phenomenal.
I saw the first episode. It was pretty amazing.
Oh, I love every second of it.
It's just Paul McCartney. It's Rick Rubin and Paul McCartney talking about just little tiny elements of Beatles songs that stand out, you know, just from Paul's memory. And then he plays a little bit of them, and then Rick Rubin, you know, they're just messing with the board to let's highlight this, and then we're gonna look at this, and where did this come from?
So fascinating.
Wow.
And it's not repetitive either. Every episode is a little bit different. To the point where Josh, who hates the Beatles, I want him to be like, I'd love him to give this a shot and watch it, because if nothing else, it'll give him a better appreciation for it, because it is, like, I've always loved them, appreciated what they did, but they were way better than I even gave them credit for. You know, you can't be that popular, the Beatles, without being overrated, but they actually are. They're not overrated. They're that good. And I just absolutely love that series on Hulu. All right, let's get to the meat of the podcast. We're an hour in. We're finally getting to Nicolas Cage. H.P. Lovecraft's Color Out of Space.
Color Out of Space stars Nicolas Cage as the father figure in a family of four, or is it five people, 3 kids, 2 parents. They live in the country. One night, this meteor slams into the ground outside of their house and gets into the groundwater, and bad things start to happen. This has got a lot of, you know, like, you want body horror, here you go. There's a scene of body horror in this movie that turned my stomach in the best possible way. Um, Cage here is, he's at times he's crazy Cage, but it's a measured sort of crazy Cage because he knows when to deploy the
Yes.
crazy. Like he said he seems to. I love what he does with his voice in this movie. It is such a clever thing to be. It's almost meta to where he recognizes that I'm being really normal here. I'm very normcore dad Nicolas Cage, but then when things are starting to get crazy, suddenly he starts to turn, and you suddenly hear him like he's almost like having like a dementia moment where he seems to forget who he's talking to, kind of, and he starts talking in this very stilted accent that's very odd.
Almost Tarantino-esque. Like he almost sounds like Quentin Tarantino doing an interview.
There's an element of that, yes. But it's so calculated, but it's perfectly
Right.
calibrated to the moment because it's about this escalating sort of insanity that's going to rise and fall throughout as this story gets crazier and crazier, and more things begin to happen. I don't think it's nearly as good as either Willy's Wonderland or Pig, but it's
Oh no.
in its way, though, it's very successful in being like a Lovecraft movie and a horror film.
And it just makes me appreciate him more. I agree. The movie itself is not as good, but he's something else in this. And I don't know. I kind of feel like needs to. I kind of mentioned it last week. Al Pacino is kind of the one I'm starting to look at when I look at Cage, because Pacino's doing it in bad movies, trying to make them good. And here, Cage is like, it looks like he's purposely taking small movies and trying to give them a little something to them. And so far, it's working for me. I'm kind of enjoying everything I see that he's done lately. Now there's a lot, so there I could be completely wrong, but it's from what I'm actually watching and the results I'm getting, I'm starting to turn a corner. I mean, I shouldn't say starting to. I've turned the corner, and now it's just about sending me back. But I mean, I just love the choices he makes. They make sense. They're original, and it gives you something new as a movie viewer to watch. And someone who's, I mean, he's an A-list actor, not acting like an A-lister for several years now. So I'm just pretty impressed with that. But yeah, you're right. This isn't Mandy. It's not Pig. It's not even. It's closer to Willy's Wonderland, I guess.
So many movie stars, you can point to areas where they're just bizarre egotists, and while there are elements of him that certainly are arrogant, maybe, but I wouldn't call him egotistical. Certainly not now. I think he seems to almost have abandoned ego in a way to just lend. Now he's lending himself to people to be used, and then then when they use him, he brings something extra to it. Like Willy's Wonderland is not Willy's Wonderland without Nicolas Cage, and he doesn't say a word because he's bringing some other type of energy there as an actor. And while you can sense that Willy's Wonderland was going for something, he gives it something else that it wouldn't have had without him, and
Right.
It makes it kind of special. And the same thing I think goes here. Any other actor, I don't think, could get the kind of performance that Cage is giving here. It is a performance where he understands the material, and then he decides, okay, I know a way that I can elevate this to something else and make it even more by using this particular thing. I'm going to make a choice here that's a little bit different than maybe other actors wouldn't make.
Yeah, this is fun.
And other actors, when they do that, like Travolta tries to do that too. He tries that, and it fails miserably when he does it because it seems like an obvious choice. It seems like something that he's doing specifically, like he does. And when he does an accent, it seems like, oh, John Travolta is doing an accent. When Nicolas Cage does it here, it feels like I know that what this moment needs. I'm going to try this, and it works.
I feel like Nicolas Cage is way more aware than we give him credit.
Certainly,
and Travolta is not aware at all. Like when he did that Fred Durst movie, We just like I tried to defend it as much as I could, but the fact of the matter is, he should know he's going into a Fred Durst movie, and in the first line something about pooping. You know, come on, you should know better. You even if it made sense, if Brian De Palma and somebody else did it, if it would work, it doesn't make a difference. Fred Durst is directing this, and your first line has something to do with poop. You need to know better, and Travolta does not seem to have that filter.
Cage seems like a collaborator now. He seems like he's not. Whereas like on Con Air, he was sort of doing his own thing, and early in his career, he could make a choice that where it's like, I'm going to do this whether you want me to or not. Now he seems to be in a mode where, like I said, he's almost post ego, where he's like, what do you need from me? All right, well, I think I can do that for you, but I'm also going to give you this, and we're going to work together and create something. And I got that sense as well from his Vanity Fair interview recently, where he's talking about the tools that he uses in a movie, and he has various different tools, and he doesn't feel like he gets credit for the various different tools that he has. And it didn't come off as egotistical. It came off like, I'm just responding to the way that you guys see me, and I'm trying to tell you to look at me in a different way.
Well, and you hear these like stories about Bruce Willis and how he just goes, no, we're done. We're not taking any more takes. We got it. And the director's like, well, I'm the director. No, we're good. We're not. I'm not doing it again. Yeah, you can do without me. This is more of the, like you said, like with Willy's Wonderland, it was clearly he brought stuff, and maybe we thought he brought way more than maybe he did. But the shirt idea, the soda, all the things that we thought he brought himself, whether he did or didn't, I could see him doing that in not a egotistical way, like in a way to elevate the film. And I think he does it here too.
I think, he's not insisting upon it. The way like Peggy Sue's Got Married, he almost tanked that movie because he insisted upon doing something. Whereas I think in Willy's Wonderland, he may have said, I want to do this, and I think it's a good choice. I'm thinking it seems to me like he seems to be working with people.
That said, I do want to go back because I hated Snake Eyes, our classic, this week when I first saw it.
Yeah.
And I had a different appreciation for it this time.
Me too.
Good. I was a little worried that this was one of those ego movies, but I thought he elevated this movie too.
Snake Eyes is a 1998 film starring Nicolas Cage and directed by Brian De Palma. It tells the story of a conspiracy to kill the Secretary of Defense, and it's a mystery story, and it's also a hero cop story, but he's not a hero. And some of that I feel like Nicolas Cage is so perfect for the way he like I think that ending feels like something he insisted upon, where I don't get to walk away. I don't get to get away with what I've done. Like I got that feeling, like because that felt a little bit tacked on. Like other movies would have ended where but I thought that I liked that choice, but also I could see him and De Palma working together on that. But he is so big and showy and over the top in this movie, but it's in service of the character. He's never just going over the top just to do it. It's not overly performative. That's who this character is. That's who Richard Santoro is this big, broad person. He's a loud, obnoxious guy wearing this awful, ugly shirt who's just excited to be wherever he is and happy to be as corrupt as possible and get what he can out of the world. And he meets this moral challenge where he's suddenly placed in a situation where somebody that he trusted has done something horrible, and he can continue to very easily continue to be corrupt and let it all happen. And he has to make a moral choice, and he makes a very important moral choice. And I bought into him. I just bought into what he's selling. And maybe it's just, recency bias of just coming to love so much of his work, but I liked the choices that he made here. I liked that he doesn't necessarily, it's not that he falls in love with Carla Gugino immediately. He's just, he seems like he'd be perfectly willing to sell her down the river, possibly. But then he does sort of reach this, when he sees the absence of morality within this person that he, was like his other half. Like, I don't have to be moral. Kevin's moral. I don't have to be, he's the good force in the universe. I can just be me. And then we see his friend absent of that morality. it kind of reflects on him like he's looking in a mirror suddenly, and he realizes that I can't be the bad guy. Somebody has to do the right thing here, and I guess it's going to have to be me. And I loved the way that Cage played that. I love the way that scene plays. And I'm not a big fan of Gary Sinise, but I thought at least Sinise was functional enough to give Cage the room to do what he's doing.
And even if he doesn't meet Carla Gugino face to face, he might sell her out and let her die. But he's put a face. I mean, he doesn't fall in love with her. He just, there's a connection. He sees her face, and now he knows she's going to die if he doesn't do the right thing. And the way he did, mix that in there as well. I hated this movie when it came out. Just hated it. Yeah. And part of me just wants to go back, and as I watch things, it's been a while since I've seen Con Air or The Rock, or I don't think I've ever seen Peggy Sue Got Married, and just wondered, I'm not watching it right, maybe. And this one was definitely one I wasn't watching right, because he annoyed me then. But you're right, it's in service of the character, and it elevates the story, and it makes kind of a lazy, lame, pretty straightforward movie. It gives it some teeth and makes it something it's not. And I appreciate that for it. I mean, he's great at chewing scenery, but in a way that services the movie. Jack Nicholson's great at it too. Al Pacino can be, but sometimes he's really, really bad. But those are it's like, I don't know. You have the guy who does it wrong in Pacino. You have the guy who's just kind of perfect in Cage. And the guy can do it on any level with Nicholson. I mean, I think that's where he belongs in discussion more so than like the Travolta or, whoever else. I think he's that great of an actor. I just think he loves acting, and he loves the process, and he loves being creative with it. I don't know. This has been a lot of fun kind of rediscovering Nicolas Cage recently.
Yeah, and I also love De Palma's direction. There's a scene in this movie where Sinise is on an elevator with Gugino and this other guy, and Cage is trying to get to her. He doesn't know that Sinise's character is there, so he's not aware of the urgency even of this situation, because Sinise is trying to kill her, and he doesn't know that. And the way that this is staged, you can see Sinise makes a very deliberate decision to not get off the elevator where she is. He doesn't want to give himself away in that way, but she knows him and she knows what's going on. But the music is propellant and exciting. The direction, the choices that he's making making sure that we know where everybody is and why they're where they are all makes sense. That is a tremendous piece of suspense.
Right. Not to mention that awesome shot at the beginning of the movie.
Yeah.
Which is all I ever thought of this movie, was just that, and then I was done. So glad to rediscover this one. I don't think you watched anything from 91, did you? I didn't. We had The Doctor.
No. Probably should have, but no.
Another Gene Wilder, Richard Pryor. Life Stinks, Mel Brooks.
No.
Mobsters.
I mean, I've seen them all. I've seen all these, but like 30 years ago.
Yeah, and V.I. Warshawski.
This movie was a big deal. This was like the first time that a woman got to play this character. That was a lot of the marketing around this, was the idea that Kathleen Turner gets to play a detective character that's like the kind of detective character that men get to play all the time, and she got to play it kind of in a way that brought femininity to the kind of flatfoot detective stories that we'd seen since the 1950s, and that it's not nearly as good as one of those is more of a testament, I think, to I think trying too much to underline the point, or trying to just like they still directed it like they have a man in the lead, and they don't really do enough to separate her character and make her any better or different, other than she has a vagina
and killer legs and killer eyes. Yeah,
but I mean, at least it has a notable history, I guess.
Well, nothing wrong with trying. You got to start somewhere. That is our show. Next week we got A24's The Green Knight, Jungle Cruise, starring The Rock, and Stillwater, starring Matt Damon. 91, some throwaway movies. Hot Shots. I don't need to watch that again, even if I might. Doc Hollywood, Body Parts, Rover Dangerfield, Return to the Blue Lagoon. We don't have a classic idea yet, but we will let you know when we do. And I'm sure Netflix and HBO and Amazon will have movies as well. We'll see what we end up watching.
Yeah.
We'll do it quick because we are running a little long, but let's play a little bit of Flick Chart. That works for you.
Sure.
Slither, Death Proof.
Death Proof.
Agreed. The Hunt for Red October, Made in Manhattan.
Hunt for Red October.
King Arthur, Legend of the Sword, Rocky 2.
Rocky 2.
Yes.
Oh, there was a problem I did have with Snake Eyes since Rocky came up there. Rocky 2 is a very good boxing movie, even if the boxing isn't necessarily realistic. It's a much better boxing movie than Snake Eyes. The boxing in Snake Eyes, I realize it's supposed to be stilted, but it's so bad. Like neither of them look like they could box at all.
Well, on top of that, the one guy's throwing the fight,
right.
And you would think it wouldn't just be Nicolas Cage that was like. Now, granted, the gunshot goes off too, so they get away with it. But you're right.
Yeah, it's bad. It was bad.
The Village, Dude, Where's My Car?
The Village, the Dude, Where's My Car is just too stupid.
I thought for sure you're gonna go Dude, Where's My Car? Batman Forever, Small Soldiers.
Batman Forever. Not a fan of Batman Forever, really, but Small Soldiers is bad.
Ready Player One, A Man for All Seasons.
A Man for All Seasons.
I haven't seen it, so I'll go with you. Zootopia, Shaun of the Dead.
I like Zootopia. I never liked Shaun of the Dead.
I want to like Shaun of the Dead, and I try. It's like Big Trouble in Little China. I try. And every time I watch it, I'm like, it's okay. If you guys didn't like this movie so much, I might like it a little better. Species, Galaxy Quest.
Galaxy Quest.
Yeah. American Sniper, Casablanca. Yeah. Dogma, The Adjustment Bureau.
Dogma.
City of God, Robin Hood.
City of God.
The Rocketeer, Scary Movie 2.
They're both bad. But The Rocketeer has a young Jennifer Connelly, so.
Yeah. Caring about Dagon, Get Smart.
I think I've seen Dagon, but I don't remember.
It's an H.P. Lovecraft movie.
Yeah.
Get on the Bus, Get Smart.
Get on the Bus.
Yeah. The Incredible Burt Wonderstone, District 9. District 9 always gets these
favorable matchups.
Movies. Right. The Wedding Singer, Bolt.
This story behind Bolt is actually better than The Wedding Singer, but the movie is Wedding Singer wins. But like Bolt was like a totally different movie when then they redid the whole thing. Like they literally made an entire movie and they didn't, and they're like, this isn't very good, let's try again. And they made a worse movie.
Two of the most popular Westerns of all time, Unforgiven, The Searchers.
That is tough. Man, I'm gonna go Unforgiven, but yeah, that is a Sophie's choice.
Yeah, I'm gonna let my child known as The Searchers die. The Hunger Games, History of the World.
Hunger Games. History of the World's funny though.
The Craft, Grown Ups.
The Craft.
Agreed. Logan, Spider-Man 3.
Logan.
Yeah. Changing Lanes, Christine.
Changing Lanes. It's actually a really good movie.
I agree, and Christine's not that great. Oh, yes. Interstellar, Rope.
Rope.
Love when that
one. I don't hate Interstellar the way you do, but yeah, Rope is a better movie for me.
Yeah, but even you agreed the story sucked balls, so I'll never forget that episode. Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, The Golden Compass. Two movies I don't give a shit about.
Yeah, I don't really Golden Compass, maybe, I guess, or
Sure.
yeah,
Ultraviolet, straight out of Compton.
straight out of Compton.
Yeah. Taxi Driver, Aliens.
Taxi Driver.
Love when that happens too. Aliens is like the unfavorable matchups. And Josh isn't here to appreciate it. Claudia with a Chance of Meatballs, Chinatown.
Chinatown.
The Living. What the fuck? The Living Daylights or Mr. Nanny.
Oh, God, I have to pick a James Bond movie. What? Oh, they both Fishing with Gandhi.
There we go. Let's end the show on that one. All right.
James Bond people must hate me so much.
Well, and I can't be the voice of reason because I don't like James Bond either. That way with Shaun of the Dead, the Edgar Wright movies, even Super Trooper. There's so many movies where we just kind of, I want to be the voice of reason, or not the voice of reason.
Speak on behalf of the many fans.
The other, who might even listen to a movie podcast, but I don't have the appreciation. All right.